Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for more stories. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Gavin Mercer stared at the lines of code on his screen, eyes burning from 16 straight hours of work. His revolutionary blockchain protocol, nicknamed Prometheus, was finally taking shape after 4 years of relentless development. At 36, he was betting everything on this technology that could decentralize the entire financial system while making transactions untraceable. "Daddy, you promised." The voice of his 8-year-old daughter, Mia, pulled him from his digital trance. She stood in the doorway of his home office, clutching her science project materials. Gavin glanced at his watch. 11:15 p.m. Had completely forgotten about helping with her volcano. "I'm so sorry, Pumpkin." He rubbed his bloodshot eyes. "Let me save this, and I'll help you right now." "Mom already did it," Mia mumbled, disappointed. "She said not to bother you because you're too busy making money that doesn't exist." The comment stung. Lauren, his wife of 11 years, had grown increasingly bitter about his work. Shed married him when he was climbing the corporate ladder at Harbor Point Technologies with a comfortable 6-figure salary. His decision 4 years ago to quit and pursue his blockchain vision had been a constant source of tension. "Is your mother still awake?" Gavin asked. "She went out with her friends from the country club again." Mia looked down. She said she needed adult conversation. Gavin felt the familiar knot in his stomach tighten. These girls' nights had become more frequent lately. Last week, had found a receipt for a $340 dinner at Astra in her purse far more extravagant than a casual night out. "Come here," he said, opening his arms. Mia rushed into them. "I promise I'm going to make this all worth it. One day, very soon, people will understand what I've been building." Later that night, Gavin heard Lauren stumble in around 1:40 a.m., smelling of expensive whiskey and wearing a dress he didn't recognize. When she slipped into bed, he pretended to be asleep, too exhausted for another argument. The next morning, over coffee, Gavin tried to bridge the growing gap between them. "I made a breakthrough yesterday," he said. "The protocol's alpha test worked perfectly. We're months ahead of schedule." Lauren looked up from her phone with practiced disinterest. At 34, she still turned heads with her polished beauty maintained through rigorous fitness regimens and cosmetic treatments Gavin could barely afford. "That's nice," she said flatly. "Did you remember we have the Harringtons charity gala tomorrow night?" "I can't go," Gavin said. "The investor meeting with Northbridge Ventures was moved up. This could be our funding breakthrough." "Perfect," Lauren snapped, slamming her mug down. "They'll just go alone again. At least I won't have to explain crypto to confused old ladies while you stand there looking like you haven't slept in weeks." "This isn't just crypto, Lauren. If Prometheus works if, she cut him off. 4 years of if, Gavin. Meanwhile, Mia barely knows her father. "I'm using credit cards to maintain appearances, and you're chasing digital fairy gold." What Lauren didn't understand or refuse to was that Gavin wasn't creating just another cryptocurrency. Prometheus was designed to be unhackable, untraceable, and capable of processing transactions in milliseconds. If successful, it would revolutionize everything from banking to international trade. 5 more months, Gavin promised. "That's all I need." "You said that 5 months ago," Lauren replied coldly. "And 5 months before that." The doorbell interrupted their standoff. Gavin opened the door to find his mentor and former professor, Dr. Harold Finch, standing there with a knowing smile. "Am I interrupting?" "I brought bagels," said the silver-haired academic who had first introduced Gavin to blockchain technology during his graduate studies. "Harold." Lauren's demeanor shifted instantly to charm mode. "What a lovely surprise. Come in." Over breakfast, Harold updated them on his connections at MIT's Digital Currency Initiative. They're working on similar protocols, but nothing as elegant as Prometheus. "Gavin, your approach to the consensus mechanism is completely revolutionary." Gavin noticed Lauren's expression change slightly at this external validation. For years, Shed assumed his work was a pipe dream because none of their social circle understood it. The Harrington Foundation is looking to diversify their investment portfolio into blockchain, Harold mentioned casually. They're hoping to find the next big innovation before it explodes. Lauren's eyebrows rose. The Harringtons were Boston old money pillars of the society she desperately wanted to join. "Gavin's presenting to potential investors tomorrow night," she said quickly. "Perhaps the weekend after. He'll make the introduction," Harold promised. They'll be impressed. After Harold left, Lauren was uncharacteristically thoughtful. Maybe I've been too hard on you, she admitted. But you have to understand how difficult this has been. Gavin embraced her, relief washing over him. It's almost over. Everything's about to change. What Gavin couldn't know was how prophetic those words would prove, but not in the way he imagined. Later that week at the charity gala Lauren attended alone, she would meet a man who would set in motion the complete unraveling of their lives. His name was Colin Archer, and he would take particular interest when Lauren mentioned her husband's blockchain project. The Northbridge Ventures meeting had been a disaster. The investors, a group of traditional finance types, couldn't grasp Gavin's vision for Prometheus. So it's like Bitcoin, one had asked dismissively. No, it's an entirely different dash, Gavin had tried to explain before being cut off. We've seen crypto come and go. What makes yours special? By the time Gavin returned home, exhausted and defeated, Lauren was already back from the gala, humming as she removed her earrings in their bedroom. How was your meeting? She asked with unusual interest. They didn't get it, Gavin sighed. How was the gala? Lauren's eyes lit up. Actually, I met someone you should talk to. Colin Archer. He runs Crescent Ridge Capital and specifically invests in blockchain technology. Gavin perked up. Really? Did you tell him about Prometheus? Just the basics, she smiled. He was fascinated. He wants to meet you. 4 days later, Gavin sat across from Colin Archer at an upscale restaurant downtown. Archer was everything Gavin wasn't. Polished, charismatic, with an ease that came from old money and elite schools. At 43, he exuded success from his tailored suit to his confident smile. Lauren described your project quite passionately, Archer said, swirling his Bordeaux. Though I suspect she didn't quite grasp the technical details. She tries, Gavin said defensively. Of course. Archer nodded sympathetically. It must be difficult having a vision others can't see. Tell me about Prometheus. Unlike the Northbridge investors, Archer asked insightful questions that showed genuine understanding. By dessert, Gavin felt he'd finally found someone who recognized Prometheus' potential. I'd like my technical team to review your work, Archer said. If it's as groundbreaking as it sounds, Crescent Ridge could offer substantial backing. Over the next weeks, Archer became a fixture in their lives. He invited the Mercers to exclusive events, sent gifts for Mia, and arranged for Gavin to pitch to serious tech investors. Lauren bloomed under his attention, dressing more expensively and laughing more freely than she had in years. Gavin was too preoccupied with finalizing Prometheus to notice the subtle shifts: Lauren's lingering glances at Archer, their private jokes, the way she touched her hair when he entered a room. He didn't see the text messages or the accidental meetings when Gavin was working. Harold Finch noticed, however. After observing Lauren and Archer at a tech conference reception, he pulled Gavin aside. How much does Archer know about your algorithms? He asked sharply. The general architecture, Gavin replied. Nothing proprietary. Something feels off, Harold frowned. I checked his background. Crescent Ridge has a pattern of investing in startups, gaining access to their IP, then abandoning them after filing competing patents. Colin wouldn't do that, Gavin said. He gets the vision. Just be careful what you share, Harold warned. And maybe pay more attention to your wife. Gavin dismissed the warning as paranoia, but a seed of doubt was planted. That night, he came home early and overheard Lauren on the phone in their bedroom. He doesn't suspect anything, she was saying softly. He's completely focused on the launch. Yes, I've seen the documents, but they're password protected. I know what's at stake, Colin. Gavin froze, heart pounding. He backed away silently, mind racing. In his home office, he checked his security logs and discovered someone had attempted to access his protected files from Lauren's laptop. The next morning, instead of confronting her, Gavin set a trap. He created a folder labeled Prometheus_final algorithms, containing altered code that would appear legitimate to non-experts, but would catastrophically fail if implemented. He deliberately mentioned the folder to Lauren over dinner. 4 years of work finally compiled in one place, he said. The patent attorney needs it by Tuesday. That night, he installed a keystroke logger on their home network and went to bed early, claiming exhaustion. At 1:17 a.m., his phone alerted him. The honeypot folder had been accessed and copied to a USB drive. Gavin lay in the darkness beside his sleeping wife, a cold clarity washing over him. The woman had loved for 11 years, the mother of his child, had betrayed him in the most fundamental way. Instead of confrontation, he chose calculation. He would let the trap play out while accelerating his real work on Prometheus. The betrayal crystallized something in him, a ruthless resolve that burned away his former trust and replaced it with icy determination. By morning, he had formulated a plan that would not only protect his work, but would eventually make Lauren and Archer pay dearly for their treachery. "You seem different," Lauren commented over breakfast, studying his face. Gavin smiled pleasantly. "Just excited. Things are finally coming together." She had no idea how true that statement was, or that the man sitting across from her had fundamentally changed overnight. The old Gavin, trusting, somewhat naive, consumed by his vision, had died in the darkness. What remained was something far more dangerous, a brilliant mind fueled by betrayal. Over the next 7 weeks, Gavin played an elaborate charade. On the surface, he continued working feverishly on Prometheus, while growing increasingly distracted and despondent. He deliberately left financial statements showing dwindling resources around the house and started forgetting important social events. "Mom says you're having a breakdown," Mia said one evening as Gavin taught her chess in his office, the one place he was certain wasn't bugged by Archer's people. "What do you think?" Gavin asked carefully. Mia studied the board before moving her knight. "I think you're playing a long game." Like in chess, Gavin smiled at his daughter's perceptiveness. "Sometimes, Pumpkin, when people think you're losing, it gives you an advantage they don't expect." Behind the scenes, Gavin had secretly completed the actual Prometheus protocol, storing the authentic code on servers only he could access. The version he worked on at home was an elaborate decoy, functional enough to seem legitimate, but missing the revolutionary elements that made Prometheus truly valuable. Meanwhile, he hired a private investigator to document Lauren's affair with Archer. The evidence mounted quickly: hotel meetups, intimate dinners, and explicit text messages discussing their plans for Gavin's technology and money. Most painful was discovering Lauren had involved Mia in their schemes. The investigators' photos showed Archer taking Mia for ice cream, buying her expensive gifts, and gradually positioning himself as a father figure. In several photos, Mia looked uncomfortable but compliant. "He's manipulating my daughter," Gavin muttered, staring at the images. "There's more," the investigator said grimly, sliding across divorce papers already drafted in Lauren's name. "They're planning something soon. The lawyer is Easton. She's known for aggressive settlements that leave spouses with nothing." Father's Day fell on a Sunday in mid-June. The evening before, Gavin received a text from Harold. Archer met with Chinese investors claiming proprietary blockchain technology. "Moving timeline up." Gavin responded, "Proceeding as planned. Stand by." That night, he securely uploaded the real Prometheus protocol to Harold's server with specific instructions. "Launch only if you receive my signal or if I'm incapacitated for more than 60 hours. The next morning, Mia bounced into their bedroom carrying a tray with burnt toast and coffee. "Happy Father's Day, Daddy," she exclaimed. "We've got a super special surprise for you." Lauren appeared, looking nervous but determined. "We've been planning this for weeks, haven't we, sweetie?" Gavin noted the strain in her smile, the way she avoided his eyes. Had expected something today, but played along with practiced obliviousness. "What's my surprise?" he asked, pretending excitement. "You have to be blindfolded." Mia giggled, producing a silk tie. "Is this necessary?" Gavin asked, feigning reluctance. "No peeking," Lauren insisted, tying it around his eyes. "It's tradition for big surprises." Gavin felt himself being guided downstairs and into their car. The drive lasted approximately 20 minutes before they stopped. "Almost there," Lauren said, her voice tight as she led him into a building and down a hallway. When the blindfold came off, Gavin found himself in an elegantly appointed office facing a stern-looking woman behind a mahogany desk. Colin Archer sat in a corner chair, attempting to look solemn, but failing to hide the triumph in his eyes. "Mr. Mercer," the woman said professionally. "I'm Valerie Easton. Your wife felt this setting might help keep things civil." On the desk lay a stack of documents, divorce papers demanding 70% of all assets and intellectual property, full custody of Mia and their house. "Sign these, and we can all move on," Lauren said coldly. "Colin has kindly offered to mediate." Gavin looked at his daughter, who stood confused by the door, clearly not understanding what was happening. He saw the moment she realized this wasn't a happy surprise, her face crumpling in betrayal. "You told me we were giving Daddy a special day," Mia whispered. "Grown-up business, sweetie," Lauren dismissed her. "Wait in the hall." As Mia left, tears streaming down her face, something hardened permanently in Gavin. He turned to Easton with surprising calm. "May I review these documents?" For 2 hours, Gavin meticulously read every page while Lauren grew increasingly agitated. Archer checked his watch repeatedly. Finally, Gavin looked up. "And if I don't sign?" "We go to court," Easton replied, "where evidence of your mental instability, financial mismanagement, and parental neglect will be presented." Gavin nodded thoughtfully. "I see." With deliberate slowness, he signed every page, his expression unreadable. Lauren didn't notice the slight smile that flickered across his face when he reached page 16, the intellectual property transfer. "Congratulations on your freedom, Lauren," Gavin said quietly as he stood to leave. "I hope it brings you everything you deserve." In the hallway, he knelt before a tearful Mia. "Did you know about this?" he asked gently. "Mom said we were surprising you with a special Father's Day," she sobbed. "She said the blindfold was part of the fun." "Listen carefully," Gavin whispered, wiping her tears. "Sometimes things aren't what they seem. No matter what happens next, remember I love you more than anything in this world." As Gavin walked away, Archer emerged from the office with a triumphant smile. "No hard feelings, right? Business is business." Gavin looked at him with such cold intensity that Archer's smile faltered. "You know what the ancient Greeks said about Prometheus?" Gavin asked quietly. He wasn't just punished for stealing fire. He was punished for giving power to those who didn't understand its consequences. With that cryptic statement, Gavin walked out, leaving his soon-to-be ex-wife and her lover believing they had won. They couldn't have been more wrong. The week following the divorce ambush was precisely orchestrated chaos. Gavin moved into a modest apartment across town, while Lauren and Archer celebrated their victory with a weekend on Martha's Vineyard. Photos of them on Archer's yacht circulated among their social circle, cementing Gavin's humiliation. What no one saw was Gavin in a secure basement facility at MIT, working furiously with Harold Finch to launch the authentic Prometheus protocol, while Archer's technical team struggled with the sabotaged code. Gavin activated the final version on a protected network. "They'll realize soon that the code they stole is fundamentally flawed," Harold observed as they monitored the deployment. "By then, it won't matter," Gavin replied, eyes fixed on the screens showing transaction processing speeds that shattered all existing records. Prometheus wasn't merely a new cryptocurrency. It was an entirely new framework for digital value exchange with military-grade security protocols. While Bitcoin processed 7 transactions per second, Prometheus handled over 10,000 while maintaining perfect anonymity. On day 7 after the divorce, Mia called Gavin in tears. "Mom's changing all the locks," she sobbed. "She says I can't see you until the custody hearing." "Did you secure what I asked for?" Gavin asked calmly. "Yes," Mia whispered. "I put your backup drives and the papers from your safe in the hollow tree like you showed me." "Good girl," Gavin said. "Remember our chess lessons? This is just the opening game." That night, Gavin retrieved the hidden materials, including evidence of Lauren's affair, financial documentation, and most importantly proof that his intellectual property had been developed years before meeting Archer. The next morning, he received a call from Daniel Price, his divorce attorney. "They filed an emergency motion claiming you're hiding assets," Price reported. "And there's something else. Archer has submitted patent applications remarkably similar to your work." "Right on schedule," Gavin noted calmly. "You don't seem surprised," Price observed. "Am not," Gavin replied. "File our countermotion immediately with exhibits A through F." The exhibits contained devastating evidence: Lauren's documented affair, her attempts to access Gavin's secured files, and, most damaging, Archer's pattern of intellectual property abuse with previous startups. By week's end, the legal momentum had shifted dramatically. The judge, initially sympathetic to Lauren's claims, now viewed the case with open skepticism. Gavin's apparent cooperation signing the divorce papers without contest had created the impression of a man with nothing to hide. Meanwhile, MIA's court-appointed advocate reported the child's distress at being used in the Father's Day deception, further damaging Lauren's custody position. 10 days after the divorce, Gavin sat alone in his apartment, monitoring cryptocurrency exchanges worldwide as Prometheus quietly went live. Unlike typical crypto launches with flashy marketing, Prometheus was introduced through trusted channels to specific high-value users seeking absolute transaction privacy. While Archer pursued patents for the flawed technology, the real Prometheus began processing millions in transactions, its value climbing steadily without drawing attention from mainstream financial media. Gavin's phone rang. Lauren, the first time since the divorce. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Colin's team says there are problems with the code." "What a surprise," Gavin replied flatly. "Don't be childish," she snapped. "We're offering $60,000 for consultation services to fix the issues." Gavin laughed softly. $60,000 for 4 years of work? Your boyfriend must be getting desperate. $120,000, she countered quickly. "Goodbye, Lauren." 2 days later, the offer had risen to $600,000. Gavin ignored each call, focused instead on Prometheus' growth and the careful documentation of Archer's increasingly frantic attempts to salvage the stolen code. While Archer's technical team floundered, the authentic Prometheus protocol gained traction in exclusive financial circles, its perfect transaction record and unprecedented security features attracting serious attention from privacy-focused investors. 16 days after the divorce, Gavin received an unexpected visitor at his apartment, Mia, who had slipped away during a shopping trip with her mother. "Mom and Colin fight all the time now," she reported, sitting cross-legged on his couch. "He keeps saying you sabotaged something. And she says he promised he checked the code before." Gavin listened carefully, asking strategic questions that Mia answered with the directness of a child not understanding the full implications. "He has people watching our house," she added. "I saw them in a car outside." Gavin's expression hardened. "Has he threatened you in any way?" "No, but Mia hesitated. "Yesterday, he said if you wouldn't help fix the problems, they might need to convince you another way." Gavin took photos of a bruise on Mia's arm, where Archer had grabbed her during an argument with Lauren, and immediately called his attorney. "We need an emergency custody hearing," he insisted, "and file for a restraining order against Archer." The next day, the cryptocurrency world woke to news of a mysterious new protocol showing transaction volumes that dwarfed established networks. Speculation about the creator of Prometheus spread through financial channels, with particular interest from Chinese investors who had recently been approached by Archer with promises of revolutionary technology. 22 days after the divorce, Gavin sat in court as temporary custody of Mia was transferred to him following the revelation of the bruising incident and Mia's testimony about the hostile environment. Lauren, disheveled and clearly stressed, approached Gavin in the courthouse hallway. "What have you done?" she hissed. "Colin says the Prometheus code is completely worthless. His investors are threatening legal action." "How unfortunate," Gavin replied without emotion. "Perhaps you should have verified what you were taking before you took it." "We're ruined," she said, her voice breaking. "The house is mortgaged to fund development. Colin's investors want their money back. And now I've lost Mia, too." For a moment, Gavin almost felt pity. Then he remembered the Father's Day ambush, the months of betrayal, the manipulation of his daughter. "Chess lesson number 1. He said quietly. "Never assume you understand the game your opponent is playing." As he walked away with Mia's hand in his, Gavin received a text from Harold. "Prometheus just crossed $1.2 billion in transaction volume. Time to go public." Gavin smiled down at his daughter. "How would you like to see your dad's work finally pay off?" "Will it make you happy again?" she asked. "I'm already happy," he said, squeezing her hand. "I have what matters most." What he didn't say was that his happiness now coexisted with something darker, a cold determination to see his betrayers face the full consequences of their actions. The real game was just beginning. Gavin chose an unassuming name for his corporate entity, Aegis Ledger Systems. He established it using a complex web of LLCs that obscured his direct ownership while maintaining absolute control. From a converted warehouse space that served as both office and temporary home for him and Mia, he began building his empire. "Why are we living here instead of getting a nice house?" Mia asked one evening, doing homework at a folding table while Gavin monitored international crypto exchanges. "What does chess teach us about appearing weak when you're strong?" Gavin countered. Make your opponent underestimate you, she replied promptly. Exactly. Right now, everyone thought her dad was a broken man who lost everything. In reality, Gavin's position strengthened daily. Prometheus' underlying protocol processed over $3 per billion in transactions in its first month, generating substantial mining fees that flowed through untraceable channels back to Aegis ledger systems. Meanwhile, Archer faced mounting disasters. The Chinese investors who had fronted $24 million for the revolutionary blockchain technology discovered the code was fundamentally flawed. Their subsequent lawsuit named both Archer and Lauren, freezing their assets pending resolution. Lauren, now living in Archer's downtown penthouse, faced her own crisis when the divorce court appointed a forensic accountant who discovered she had diverted household funds to private accounts for months before the divorce. Gavin tracked these developments through his attorney while methodically executing Phase 2 of his plan, legitimizing Prometheus for mainstream adoption. 42 days after the divorce, Gavin arranged a meeting with Sylvia Torres, CEO of AxiaPay, a digital payment processor struggling against larger competitors. In a secure conference room, Gavin demonstrated Prometheus' capabilities. This processes how many transactions per second? Torres asked incredulously. 18,000 in the current implementation, Gavin replied, with potential to scale to 45,000. And the security protocol? Quantum-resistant encryption with perfect forward secrecy, essentially unhackable with current technology. Torres studied him carefully. Why come to AxiaPay with this technology? Any major player would give you billions. Because you'll give me something more valuable than money, Gavin explained. Complete anonymity while we scale. The major players would want their branding, their control. I need a partner willing to follow my implementation timeline precisely. The deal they struck would later be recognized as one of the most lopsided in financial technology history. AxiaPay received non-exclusive implementation rights to Prometheus in exchange for 30% of transaction fees and a critical clause. Gavin's identity would remain completely confidential. With institutional backing secured, Prometheus began its controlled expansion. AxiaPay's stock surged 400% in 2 weeks as they announced a revolutionary new processing system that protected user privacy while drastically reducing transaction costs. 58 days after the divorce, Harold Finch visited the warehouse headquarters with news from academic circles. MIT wants to give you the Pioneer in Digital Economics Award, he announced. Your protocol has been analyzed by their cryptography team, and they're calling it the most significant advancement since Bitcoin. Decline politely, Gavin instructed. The time isn't right for public recognition. Instead, Gavin focused on establishing the infrastructure that would ultimately serve his plan. He created a specialized team, young, brilliant cryptographers and systems engineers sworn to secrecy and compensated with Prometheus tokens now worth millions. Your mission, he told them, is to create perfect financial transparency where anonymity currently exists. This seemingly paradoxical goal would become the foundation of what his team called Project Nemesis, a specialized application of Prometheus technology that could trace and expose hidden financial transactions without being detected. 68 days after the divorce, Gavin received intelligence that Archer had leveraged his remaining assets to short AxiaPay stock, believing the surge was a temporary bubble. The irony wasn't lost on Gavin. Archer was now financially betting against the very technology he had tried to take. While Prometheus flourished, Gavin maintained his modest lifestyle with Mia, now attending a new school where she was thriving away from the toxic environment of her mother's home. The custody arrangement allowed Lauren's supervised visitation, which she increasingly canceled as her financial and legal troubles mounted. Does Mom not want to see me anymore? Mia asked after the third consecutive cancellation. Your mother is going through a difficult time, Gavin answered carefully. Some people find it hard to face those they've hurt. 83 days after the divorce, the financial world was rocked by a Bloomberg article analyzing the explosive growth of the Prometheus protocol and speculating about its anonymous creator. The piece estimated the unknown developer's holdings at approximately $3.5 billion, making them one of the wealthiest individuals in cryptocurrency. The day after publication, Lauren called Gavin for the first time in weeks. I know what you've done, she said, her voice a mixture of anger and desperation. The real Prometheus was never in our home system, was it? You're only now figuring that out? Gavin replied. Disappointing. Colin is ruined, she continued. The investor lawsuits, legal fees were selling the penthouse. He blames me for not getting better access to your work. How tragic, Gavin responded without inflection. I assume that's why you've been canceling visitations with Mia. I can't face her, Lauren admitted, her voice breaking. Not like this. Broke, being evicted, with legal troubles. This isn't the life I wanted. Choices have consequences, Lauren. You chose Archer. You chose deception. You chose to use our daughter in your schemes. I made a terrible mistake, she whispered. Is there any way we could dash? No. Gavin interrupted with finality. There isn't. After hanging up, Gavin received an alert from his monitoring system. Someone had attempted to access his old email accounts and financial records. The source traced back to Archer's private server. Gavin smiled coldly. Even facing complete ruin, Archer was still searching for leverage, still believing he could outsmart the man he had so grievously underestimated. Time for the endgame, Gavin murmured, opening his secure messaging system to activate the final phase of Project Nemesis. 88 days after the divorce, Gavin Mercer disappeared completely from public view. His modest apartment emptied overnight. Mia was temporarily placed with Harold Finch, who cited a family emergency requiring Gavin's immediate attention overseas. In truth, Gavin had moved to a secure compound outside Seattle where Project Nemesis entered its final implementation stage. From this fortified location, surrounded by his elite team, he prepared to unveil the full power of Prometheus not just as a revolutionary financial technology, but as an instrument of perfect, inescapable justice. The disappearance coincided with rumors in financial circles of an imminent major announcement about Prometheus' creator. The cryptocurrency's value surged in anticipation, crossing the threshold that would officially make its anonymous developer a billionaire. 98 days after the divorce, a simple press release from Aegis Ledger Systems announced, the developer known as Prometheus will address the World Tech and Finance Summit via secure video link on Thursday. The countdown to revelation had begun. The World Tech and Finance Summit in Davos attracted the global financial elite. CEOs, central bankers, and technology visionaries gathered in the Swiss Alpine resort to discuss the future of money. The unscheduled announcement of Prometheus creator's appearance sent shock waves through the conference. In a Boston apartment, Colin Archer and Lauren Mercer watched the live stream, their once luxurious surroundings replaced by rented furniture. Archer had aged visibly in the months since the divorce debacle, his confident demeanor replaced by nervous agitation. This could be our chance, he muttered, pouring his third scotch of the morning. If we can prove connection to your ex-husband's work, Lauren's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Watch carefully. Gee. Her blood ran cold. Colin, I think Gavin is behind this announcement. On stage in Davos, the moderator addressed the packed auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to present a secure transmission from the creator of the Prometheus protocol, whose identity has remained the financial world's greatest mystery. The massive screen illuminated, showing not a face, but the Prometheus symbol, a stylized figure holding digital fire. A digitally altered voice spoke. Prometheus stole fire from the gods to empower humanity. Today, I'm revealing how this new financial fire can illuminate what has long remained hidden. The voice explained how Prometheus wasn't merely a transaction protocol, but a sophisticated system capable of tracing and verifying financial movements through seemingly impenetrable shells and privacy structures. To demonstrate, I've selected a case study involving systematic intellectual property theft and financial fraud. The screen changed to display familiar faces, Colin Archer and several Chinese investors at a meeting dated 3 weeks before Gavin's divorce. Oh God, Lauren whispered, watching in horror. Documents appeared showing Archer had received $36 million from Chinese state-backed funds in exchange for technology he didn't own. Bank records revealed how he had moved the money through 17 jurisdictions, traditionally considered financial black holes. The voice continued implacably. Prometheus can follow these transactions precisely, revealing how these funds were used to bribe patent officials, manipulate court proceedings, and attempt to take intellectual property developed by others. In Boston, Archer lunged for his phone. We need to leave now. If the feds see this, The apartment door crashed open as federal agents swarmed in, devices out. "Colin Archer, you're under arrest for wire fraud, intellectual property theft, and violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act." As Archer was restrained, an agent approached Lauren. "Lauren Mercer, we have some questions about your involvement in Mr. Archer's activities." In Davos, the presentation continued, meticulously documenting how Prometheus had tracked complex financial crimes previously considered untraceable. Banking executives shifted uncomfortably as the system demonstrated capabilities that rendered traditional financial secrecy obsolete. Near the conclusion, the digitally altered voice made an announcement that sent cryptocurrency markets into a frenzy. "Today, I'm transferring control of the Prometheus Foundation to a consortium of international universities. My personal holdings, valued at approximately $5.8 billion, will fund research into ethical implementations of this technology." The screen shifted to show the Foundation's inaugural board of directors, distinguished cryptographers, ethicists, and economists. Among them was Dr. Harold Finch, listed as acting director. As global media exploded with the news, Gavin Mercer sat in his Seattle compound watching multiple screens. One showed the Davos presentation. Another displayed Archer being led to a government vehicle. A third monitored cryptocurrency exchanges where Prometheus tokens surged to unprecedented values. A secure phone rang. "Harold, it's working perfectly," the professor reported. "The Justice Division is already requesting access to Prometheus for financial crimes." "They'll have it," Gavin replied, "with specific limitations." "The board position was unexpected," Harold noted. "I assume you have your reasons." "Someone I trust needs to guard against misuse," Gavin explained. "Power corrupts, even digital power." After hanging up, Gavin opened his laptop to check one final operation: the complete financial destruction of those who had betrayed him. Archer's assets were now frozen by federal authorities. The Chinese investors faced their own government's wrath for a failed operation, and Lauren Gavin had been more surgical with her. Rather than criminal charges, had ensured complete financial ruin. Her credit was destroyed, her reputation in tatters, her expensive tastes now impossible to maintain. The house she'd fought for in the divorce was underwater in debt, and the cushy support she'd expected was legally voided by her documented affair and involvement in Archer's schemes. The response Gavin had crafted wasn't merely about punishment. It was about irreversible consequence. There would be no recovery for Archer or Lauren. No second chances, no redemption narrative. They had tried to destroy him and had instead destroyed themselves. Gavin's phone lit up with a familiar number. Lauren again, the first of what would become 74 increasingly desperate calls over the next week. He declined without hesitation as he packed a suitcase. Tomorrow, he and Mia would move into their new home, a modest but comfortable lakeside property chosen for its security rather than ostentation. Gavin had no interest in the trappings of wealth that had so obsessed Lauren. That evening, as news channels worldwide reported on the crypto-billionaire divorce connection, Gavin sat with Mia watching the sunset over the Seattle skyline. "Is it over now?" she asked, intuitive as always. "The hard part is," Gavin confirmed, putting his arm around her shoulders. "Mom called my school today," Mia said quietly. "She was crying, asking about me." Gavin considered his response carefully. The ruthlessness that had driven his plan didn't extend to poisoning his daughter against her mother, despite everything. "Your mother made terrible choices," he said finally. "But she does love you in her way. Can I see her sometimes?" "If you want to," Gavin replied. "That's your choice to make." "What about you?" Mia asked. "Will you ever forgive her?" Gavin looked out at the darkening sky, his expression hardening. "No, Mia. Some betrayals don't get forgiveness." The media never connected Gavin Mercer to the Prometheus protocol. As far as the world knew, the brilliant developer remained anonymous, his identity one of the great mysteries of the financial world. Only his small circle, Harold Finch, Gavin's core development team, and eventually Mia, when she was old enough to understand, knew the truth: that the man who had revolutionized global finance had done so partly to create the perfect vehicle for justice against those who had betrayed him. And justice, in Gavin Mercer's world, came without mercy. Recent divorce, single dad becomes crypto-billionaire. The headline splashed across financial news sites worldwide 8 days after the Davos revelation. While the article didn't name Gavin specifically, the The timing and circumstances left little doubt for those involved. Lauren had called Gavin 74 times in those 7 days. Each call declined without comment. The Prometheus Foundation opened headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with Dr. Harold Finch guiding its integration into legitimate financial systems. Meanwhile, federal prosecutors built what they called airtight cases against Archer and his co-conspirators using evidence provided through the Prometheus system. 5 months after the divorce, Gavin and Mia settled into their new routine in a Seattle suburb. Their home, modern but understated, sat on 5 secure acres beside a private lake. Gavin worked remotely as a blockchain consultant, his connection to Prometheus known to only a trusted few. "Dad, someone's here to see you," Mia called one Saturday morning. "She says she's your ex-wife." Gavin found Lauren standing in their entryway, significantly changed from the polished socialite who had orchestrated his humiliation. Her designer clothes had been replaced by off-the-rack basics, her perfect highlights grown out, her confident posture diminished. "How did you find us?" Gavin asked coldly. "I hired a private investigator," she admitted. "It took most of my remaining money." "You shouldn't be here," Gavin said, ushering her outside where Mia couldn't overhear. "They've frozen all of Colin's assets," Lauren said desperately. "I have nothing. The house is in foreclosure. My credit is destroyed, and no one in our old circle will speak to me." "Consequences," Gavin replied simply. "I know you're behind Prometheus," she pressed. "The timing, the technology, it can't be coincidence." Gavin's expression remained impassive. "You should leave." "I made a terrible mistake," Lauren pleaded, tears forming. "I was frustrated and patient. Colin manipulated me with promises. Stop," Gavin interrupted sharply. "You weren't manipulated. You were greedy and disloyal. You used our daughter in your schemes." "I still love you," she whispered. Something flashed in Gavin's eyes. Not compassion, but disgust. "Is that what this is about? You've lost your rich boyfriend, your lifestyle, so now you love me again? Now that I have what you always wanted?" "It's not like that," she protested weakly. "You blindfolded me and led me to a divorce lawyer on Father's Day," Gavin reminded her, his voice dangerously controlled. "You conspired to take everything I'd built. You chose Archer over your family. There is no coming back from that. Not ever." Lauren's desperation turned to anger. "You cold bastard. You engineered all of this, Colin's arrest, my financial ruin for revenge." "No," Gavin corrected. "I built something revolutionary and protected what was mine. What happened to you and to Archer was your own doing." After Lauren left, Gavin found Mia waiting inside, clearly having overheard parts of the conversation. "Mom looked really sad," she observed. "She is sad," Gavin acknowledged. "Sometimes people make choices that lead to sadness." "Like choosing the wrong person?" Mia asked with unsettling perception. "Yes," Gavin confirmed. "Like that." That evening, Gavin received a call from Harold Finch with disturbing news. Archer made bail this afternoon. His legal team claimed prosecutorial misconduct. "How?" Gavin demanded. "The evidence is irrefutable. They're arguing the Prometheus tracking violated privacy laws," Harold explained. "It's tenuous, but it bought him temporary freedom. I'm more concerned about his mental state. He was overheard making threats against you specifically." Gavin intensified security measures at their home, but refused to disrupt MIA's routine. "We don't live in fear," he told his security chief. "We prepare and remain vigilant." 2 days later, Gavin received an encrypted message from an anonymous source: surveillance photos of him and Mia at her school, at grocery stores, at her soccer practice. The message contained one line: "You took everything from me. Now we're even." Gavin immediately moved Mia to their secured lake house while he implemented a counter-surveillance operation. Using Prometheus's capabilities, he tracked the digital footprint of the threat to a motel outside Seattle where Archer had checked in under a false name. Rather than involving authorities, Gavin visited the motel himself with 2 private security contractors, former special operations soldiers who now worked for Aegis Ledger Systems. The confrontation in room 112 was brief but definitive. Archer, unshaven and clearly unhinged, reached for a weapon but was quickly subdued. "You ruined me," Archer spat as he was pinned to the floor. "Everything I built, gone." "You built nothing," Gavin replied coldly. "You're a thief who finally tried it on someone who could fight back." Gavin confiscated Archer's laptop, which contained not only the surveillance photos, but detailed plans to abduct Mia for ransom. The evidence was anonymously delivered to the U.S. Marshals Service, resulting in Archer's bail being revoked and additional charges filed. 11 days later, federal prosecutors approached Gavin through intermediaries, seeking testimony in their expanding case against Archer's network. "I'll cooperate fully," Gavin agreed. "Under one condition: complete anonymity." For the next 4 weeks, Gavin provided testimony via secure video link, his identity protected by court order. The evidence he provided expanded the case beyond Archer to include corrupt patent officials, compromised judges, and foreign intelligence officers who had backed the technology theft. The investigation revealed something even more disturbing. Lauren's involvement had been deeper than initially apparent. Email records showed she had been feeding Archer information about Gavin's work for nearly a year before the divorce, motivated not just by the affair, but by promised millions when Prometheus was stolen and commercialized. When confronted with this evidence, Lauren accepted a plea deal to testify against Archer, receiving immunity from prosecution in exchange for complete cooperation. She chose self-preservation again, Harold observed when Gavin shared this development. "Are you surprised?" "Not in the slightest," Gavin replied. Loyalty was never her strong suit. The federal case expanded to include national security implications as prosecutors argued that Archer's attempted theft of Prometheus technology constituted economic espionage backed by a foreign power. Meanwhile, the legitimate Prometheus protocol continued its extraordinary growth. Under the Foundation's guidance, it was adopted by major financial institutions worldwide, revolutionizing everything from international wire transfers to micropayments. 8 months after the divorce, Gavin received a formal letter from the Senate Banking Committee requesting the creator of Prometheus testify regarding its implications for financial regulation. Through Harold, Gavin declined. "The technology speaks for itself," his official response stated. "Its creator's identity is irrelevant to policy considerations." In truth, Gavin had no interest in public recognition. His focus remained on 2 priorities: raising Mia in a stable, secure environment and ensuring Prometheus fulfilled its potential without being corrupted by political or corporate interests. 11 months after the Father's Day betrayal, Gavin sat on his lakeside deck watching Mia swim with friends from her new school. His phone vibrated with breaking news. Colin Archer had been sentenced to 27 years in federal prison for fraud, economic espionage, conspiracy, and attempted kidnapping. There was no satisfaction in the news, only a sense of completion. The man who had plotted to take his life's work, who had corrupted his wife and threatened his daughter, was facing justice. Later that evening, Mia found Gavin working in his home office. "Dad, are we rich?" she asked bluntly, sitting on the edge of his desk. "Tommy says his dad thinks you're secretly a billionaire." Gavin closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "What do you think?" "I think we live in a nice house, but not a mansion," she reasoned. "I don't have a pony or a private jet. So, either we're not rich, or you're weird about money." Gavin laughed, a genuine sound that had become more common recently. "Maybe both are true. Money is just a tool, Mia. It can't make you happy by itself. But you did create Prometheus, right?" she pressed. "The thing everyone's talking about. What makes you think that?" "Uncle Harold has a Prometheus Foundation coffee mug," she explained. "And you always get this look when it's on the news, like you're trying not to smile." Gavin studied his perceptive daughter. At 12, she'd already endured more upheaval than most children, yet had emerged resilient and insightful. "If I did create it," he said carefully, "it would need to remain a secret. Some secrets protect the people we love." Mia nodded solemnly. "Like how we don't tell people where we live or what you really do." "Exactly like that." That night, Gavin received an email from Lauren, her first written communication since their confrontation months earlier. The message was brief: "I'm leaving for a fresh start overseas. Please tell Mia I'm sorry for everything. I won't contact you again." Gavin didn't respond. Some chapters needed to stay closed. The next day brought news that would accelerate Gavin's carefully constructed endgame. The Justice Department announced a specialized financial crimes unit dedicated to using Prometheus technology to track previously untraceable transactions. "They're requesting direct technical support from the Foundation," Harold reported. "This is what you've been waiting for. Implement Phase 3, Gavin instructed. "It's time." Phase 3 represented the culmination of Gavin's vision for Prometheus not merely as a cryptocurrency or transaction protocol, but as an instrument of fundamental change in how economic power functioned worldwide. The blindfold had been lifted not just from Gavin's eyes, but from the global financial system itself. The darkness where corruption and theft once flourished was now illuminated by the fire he had created. And like the mythical figure whose name he had borrowed, Gavin Mercer had taken fire from the gods of finance and given it to humanity, knowing full well the personal costs such defiance would demand. He had paid that price willingly, and unlike those who had betrayed him, he had emerged not just intact, but transformed. 17 months after the divorce, the Prometheus Protocol had fundamentally altered the global financial landscape. Traditional tax havens struggled to justify their existence when Prometheus could track money through previously impenetrable structures. Corruption networks found their once secret financial pipelines exposed to authorities using the technology. Gavin watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction from his carefully guarded privacy. While speculation about Prometheus' creator continued in financial media, his identity remained protected by an extensive security apparatus and legal firewalls. The International Monetary Fund is implementing Prometheus for cross-border transaction monitoring, Harold reported during his monthly visit to the Seattle compound. They're calling it the most significant advancement in financial transparency since the creation of modern banking. And the resistance? Gavin asked, knowing the protocol's disruptive power had created powerful enemies. Diminishing, Harold confirmed. When the Swiss banks adopted it last quarter, the remaining holdouts lost their primary argument against implementation. What neither discussed openly was the secondary system Gavin had developed alongside the public Prometheus protocol, a private monitoring network that gave him unprecedented visibility into global financial movements, including those of the people who had betrayed him. Through this system, Gavin tracked the aftermath of his response with clinical detachment. Archer's legal appeals had been denied, his remaining assets seized by government agencies. The foreign investors who had backed him faced their own government's retribution for a failed operation. Lauren had indeed left the country, using her immunity deal to avoid prosecution, but finding herself essentially stateless unwelcome in financial circles globally due to her association with Archer's crimes. Gavin's monitoring showed her working as an English teacher in Southeast Asia, her glamorous former life replaced by modest subsistence. The completeness of this reversal should have brought satisfaction, but Gavin found only a hollow emptiness when he considered his ex-wife's fate. The love he had once felt had been completely excised, replaced not with hatred, but with something perhaps more final: absolute indifference. His focus remained firmly on Mia and on guiding Prometheus' evolution from behind the scenes. Now 12, Mia had blossomed in their new life, excelling academically and showing particular aptitude for mathematics and computer science. Like father, like daughter, Harold observed after Mia showed him an algorithm she'd developed for her science project. Gavin's life found a new equilibrium structured around Mia's school schedule, his remote work guiding Prometheus' development, and the quiet security of their lakeside home. He dated occasionally, always carefully vetted women who never learned the full extent of his work or wealth. "You deserve happiness, too," Harold told him during one of their chess matches. "Not just success." Gavin moved his knight with deliberate precision. "I am happy. I have Mia, meaningful work, and peace. That's more than most achieve." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from Gavin's security chief. Unauthorized individuals had been detected surveilling the perimeter of their property. "Government?" Gavin asked tersely. "Negative," the security chief replied. "Initial assessment suggests private operators. Professional, but not agency-trained." Gavin immediately initiated their security protocol, with Mia brought to the house's secure core while surveillance drones deployed to identify the intruders. Thermal imaging showed 3 individuals in tactical positions around the property perimeter. Rather than calling local authorities, Gavin activated his private security team, former intelligence operatives who protected key Prometheus personnel. Within 20 minutes, the intruders had been captured and secured in a boathouse at the edge of the property. Their equipment and communications suggested a sophisticated private intelligence operation. "Who hired you?" Gavin demanded, standing before the restrained men. We don't know, the team leader replied after calculating his options. Cutout protocol. Payment through anonymous cryptocurrency. Ironic, Gavin noted coldly. Check their equipment for any non-standard modifications. A thorough search revealed specialized surveillance technology with components traced to a defense contractor with foreign military connections, the same group that had backed Archer's attempted theft of Prometheus. They never stopped looking for you, Harold realized when Gavin shared this information. That government still wants the creator of Prometheus. They won't find him, Gavin replied with quiet confidence. But this means we accelerate the contingency plan. The contingency had been prepared since Prometheus first launched, a complete legal and digital separation between Gavin Mercer and his creation. Through a complex series of transactions and legal structures, ownership of the Prometheus protocol was irrevocably transferred to the nonprofit foundation, with Gavin's contribution anonymized through multiple layers of protection. Even if his identity were discovered, no one could prove he had created Prometheus or lay claim to the technology. His personal wealth, substantial but deliberately kept below levels that would attract attention, was similarly insulated through trusts and legal structures designed to withstand investigation. What about Mia? Harold asked. She knows. She understands operational security better than most adults, Gavin replied. But we'll take additional precautions. Those precautions included a full security audit of MIA's digital footprint, enhanced physical security at her school, and contingency relocation plans if their current residence was compromised. A day after the security breach, Gavin received an encrypted message from an unexpected source. Roland Pierce, a former colleague from Harbor Point Technologies who now worked for NSA Cyber Command. Need to meet. Matter concerns your former wife and C.A. urgent. The meeting took place at a secure facility outside Seattle. Pierce, now showing the stress of his high-pressure position, briefed Gavin on a disturbing development. Archer has been communicating with foreign intelligence from prison, Pierce explained, spreading surveillance transcripts across the table. He's offering something called Prometheus Zero, claiming it's the original prototype you developed before the public version. Gavin's expression remained neutral, though internally he processed this new threat. Prometheus Zero doesn't exist. We know that, Pierce confirmed. But they're interested enough to have arranged a reduced sentence through back channels. He's being moved to house arrest next month officially for health reasons. And Lauren's involvement. She returned to the U.S. last week, Pierce said, sliding across surveillance photos showing Lauren at Los Angeles International Airport. Our intelligence suggests she's the proposed intermediary for whatever Archer is planning to sell. Why tell me this? What does NSA want? Officially, nothing. This meeting never happened, Pierce said. Unofficially, we need to know if he could have accessed any early versions of your work that might be valuable to foreign actors. No, Gavin answered. But he's desperate enough to construct an elaborate fiction. That's our assessment as well, Pierce nodded. However, the threat to you and your daughter is very real. Archer blames you for everything, and he'll soon have considerably more freedom of movement. After the meeting, Gavin initiated the final security protocol he had hoped never to use: complete digital and physical dissociation. Within 48 hours, he and Mia would relocate to a prepared fallback position impossible to connect to Gavin Mercer or Prometheus. Is this like witness protection? Mia asked as they packed essential items. Similar, but better, Gavin explained. We're not running away. We're disappearing on our terms, with our resources intact. Before leaving, Gavin made one final arrangement through secure channels, a comprehensive intelligence package delivered to federal prosecutors detailing Archer's ongoing activities and his connection to foreign intelligence services. Will this be enough to stop him? Harold asked when Gavin shared the plan. No, Gavin replied honestly, but it will distract him long enough for us to implement the final solution. The final solution wasn't merely escape or protection. It was the complete neutralization of the threat Archer represented. Gavin had spent months developing a specialized application of Prometheus technology designed to track and expose every digital and financial action Archer took upon his release. 24 months after the Father's Day betrayal, Colin Archer emerged from federal prison, ostensibly for medical treatment under house arrest. That same day, Gavin and Mia disappeared completely from their Seattle compound, leaving no digital or physical trace of their destination. What remained behind was an automated system monitoring every aspect of Archer's communication, movement, and financial activity, a digital panopticon from which he couldn't escape. 2 days after Archer's release, he met with Lauren at a nondescript hotel in Portland. Their conversation, captured by Gavin's system, revealed the desperation driving them both. "The investors will pay $20 million for even partial Prometheus code," Archer insisted. "We just need to deliver something convincing enough to get payment up front." "There is no Prometheus Zero," Lauren reminded him. "It was always a bluff to get you out." "They don't know that," Archer countered. "We create convincing documentation, deliver encrypted files that appear legitimate, and disappear with the money before they realize they've been conned." "And Gavin?" Lauren asked. "Hell no instantly," Archer said. "By then, we'll be beyond his reach. New identities, a country without extradition." What neither realized was that their entire conversation was being routed through servers controlled by Gavin's system, every word parsed and analyzed, every plan countered before it could be implemented. When Archer contacted his handlers, the communication was subtly altered, the meeting location changed, the verification protocols manipulated. When he attempted to create false Prometheus documentation, invisible markers were inserted identifying the fraud. From a secured location thousands of miles away, Gavin watched this digital chess game unfold, always 3 moves ahead of his opponents. "Is this revenge or justice?" Harold asked during one of their secure calls. "At this point," Gavin replied, "the distinction is academic. It's survival." 28 days after Archer's release, he and Lauren traveled to Macau for their scheduled meeting with technology officials. Instead, they were met by internal security agents who had received comprehensive evidence of Archer's attempt to defraud their government. Within hours, both Archer and Lauren had disappeared into an opaque detention system beyond the reach of American authorities or legal representation. Gavin received confirmation through intelligence channels that both had been charged with fraud, attempted espionage, and crimes against the economic system, charges that typically resulted in long sentences at remote facilities. "It's over," Harold said when the news was confirmed. "They can never threaten you or Mia again." "It was always going to end this way for them," Gavin answered. "People who survive by betrayal eventually run out of trust to exploit." 10 weeks later, in a villa overlooking the Mediterranean, Gavin watched Mia swimming in their private cove. Their new identities were flawless, their security comprehensive but unobtrusive. The fortune Gavin had accumulated remained accessible through structures impossible to trace to either his former or current identity. As the architect of a financial revolution, he could have claimed public recognition and the adulation that would have accompanied it. Instead, he chose this quiet exile, protective of the peace he had carved from chaos. That evening, as they watched the sunset from their terrace, Mia asked the question that had been forming in her mind for weeks. "Are we ever going back to our real lives?" "This is our real life now," Gavin said after a moment. "The people we were before exist only in memories." "What about Mom?" she asked. "Will we ever know what happened to her?" Gavin had shielded Mia from the full truth about her mother's fate, telling her only that Lauren had chosen to follow Archer overseas. "Your mother made choices that took her beyond our reach," he said finally. "Some people can't escape the consequences of their actions." "Did you love her once?" Mia pressed, showing the perceptiveness that sometimes startled even Gavin. "Very much," he admitted. "But people change or perhaps show their true selves eventually." "Will you ever forgive her?" Gavin's answer remained unchanged, his voice carrying the same resolute finality. "No, Mia. Some betrayals don't get forgiveness." The Mediterranean sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples as they sat in companionable silence. Gavin had lost much: his name, his home, the public recognition for his creation, but he had protected what mattered most: his daughter and the technology that would continue transforming the world long after the names Gavin Mercer, Lauren Mercer, and Colin Archer had been forgotten. The fire he had taken from the gods now burned brightly across the global financial system, illuminating darkness that had previously seemed impenetrable. And like the mythological figure whose name he had borrowed, he had accepted exile as the price for his defiance of the established order. Unlike Prometheus, however, Gavin had escaped the eagles sent to devour him. He had turned their hunger against them. ensuring that those who had sought to destroy him were themselves destroyed. It was not forgiveness. It was not mercy. It was perfect, inescapable justice, cold as code and absolute as mathematics. 4 years and 11 months after the Father's Day betrayal, Gavin sat at his desk in their villa study, reviewing the latest Prometheus Foundation report. The protocol now processed over 60% of global financial transactions, its security and efficiency standards having become the industry benchmark. At 16, Mia had grown into a brilliant young woman with her father's analytical mind and a compassion he sometimes envied, currently attending an elite international school under their new identity. She was already receiving interest from prestigious universities worldwide. "Someone sent you a package," Mia announced, entering with a small courier envelope. "Biometric verification required." Gavin scanned his thumb on the encoded lock immediately alert. Few people knew their location, and fewer still had access to such secure delivery methods. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note from Harold. "Thought you should know. Contingency measures advised." The drive contained news reports and classified intelligence about Colin Archer's death in a detention facility officially from natural causes, though the circumstances suggested otherwise. More concerning were records showing Lauren had been released after serving 3 years. Her current whereabouts, unknown. "Problem?" Mia asked, noting her father's focused concentration. "Nothing immediate," Gavin replied, already implementing additional security protocols through his encrypted system. "Just a loose end that needs monitoring." 2 days later, Gavin received an alert that someone had attempted to access an old email account had maintained as a honeypot, digital tripwire designed to detect anyone searching for Gavin Mercer. The access originated from Monaco, less than 90 miles from their Mediterranean villa. "Coincidence?" Harold asked during their weekly secure call. "There are no coincidences in my world," Gavin replied. "Implement Shadow Protocol 7. The protocol deployed a sophisticated digital countermeasure. False information strategically placed to suggest Gavin had relocated to New Zealand years earlier. Meanwhile, enhanced physical security discreetly surrounded their Mediterranean compound. 12 days passed without incident, leading Gavin to consider whether the threat had been neutralized or diverted. Then, during a routine security sweep, his team discovered a sophisticated listening device hidden in Mia's private sailboat, her 16th birthday gift that she kept moored in the local marina. The discovery triggered immediate evacuation to their secondary safe house in the mountains. As Gavin's security team swept their villa for additional surveillance, he debated the most effective response to this invasion of their sanctuary. "We should just disappear again," Mia suggested as they settled into the mountain chalet. "We've done it before." "Running worked when you were younger," Gavin said, studying his daughter's calm resilience with pride. "But you deserve stability now. Friends, school, a normal life." "Normal left the building when I was 9, Mia pointed out with a wry smile so reminiscent of her mother that it momentarily caught Gavin off guard. That evening, Gavin's secure phone rang with an unfamiliar number. After verification protocols, he answered to hear a voice he hadn't expected. "Hello, Gavin," Lauren said softly. "It's been a long time." Gavin signaled his security team to trace the call while maintaining conversation. "How did you find us?" "With great difficulty," she admitted. 3 years in a Chinese prison gives you perspective on what matters." "I needed to see Mia." "That's not possible," Gavin replied flatly. "I've changed," Lauren insisted. "The woman who betrayed you died in that prison. I just want to apologize to our daughter." "Your surveillance devices suggest otherwise," Gavin countered. "The listening equipment on her boat wasn't placed by someone seeking reconciliation." A pause. "That wasn't me. I've been watching from a distance, trying to find the right moment to approach, but am not the only one looking for you." The trace confirmed the call originated from a hotel in Nice, roughly 80 kilometers away. Simultaneous surveillance showed a woman matching Lauren's description in the hotel bar, older, harder, but unmistakably her. "Who else?" Gavin demanded. "Colin had partners you never identified," Lauren explained urgently. "People who invested millions in trying to take Prometheus before you exposed him. They blame you for their losses and for his death." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm here telling you instead of hiding," she replied. "And because whatever happened between us, Mia is still my daughter." Gavin ended the call without commitment, immediately enhancing security around the chalet while his team vetted Lauren's claims. Within hours, they had confirmation. Surveillance photos showed 3 known associates of Archer's foreign backers had arrived in Nice 2 days earlier. A deeper investigation revealed disturbing connections to a private military contractor known for extraction operations and targeted eliminations. She's telling the truth, Gavin concluded after reviewing the evidence, though her motives remained suspect. Rather than retreating further, Gavin made an unexpected decision. After nearly 5 years of hiding and reactive security, he would eliminate this final threat permanently. Implement Cerberus, he instructed his security chief, authorizing a protocol developed but never previously activated. Cerberus represented the offensive capability of Gavin's security apparatus, a coordinated operation using digital weapons, financial pressure, and, if necessary, physical intervention to neutralize threats at their source. The first phase deployed custom Prometheus analytics to identify the financial structures backing the operation against him. Within hours, the system had mapped the complete network shell companies, proxies, and ultimately the 3 primary financiers behind the threat. Foreign military intelligence? Harold asked when Gavin shared the findings. Former officials now operating privately, Gavin clarified, using resources diverted during their government service to pursue personal vendettas. The second phase froze their operational accounts through an untraceable implementation of Prometheus security protocols, stranding their tactical team without resources or support. For the final phase, Gavin did something he had avoided for years. He deliberately revealed his location through controlled channels, creating an irresistible target for the remnants of Archer's network. You're using yourself as bait, Harold realized with alarm. I'm ending this permanently, Gavin said. On my terms, on my territory. 3 days later, as predicted, the mercenary team attempted infiltration of the mountain chalet, bypassing the obvious security to approach through the densely forested northern perimeter. They encountered neither Gavin nor Mia, but rather an elite security unit specifically positioned based on predictive analysis of their most likely approach. The confrontation was brief, professional, and decisive. By morning, the captured operatives had revealed their complete operational structure under interrogation. Gavin's team methodically documented evidence of the conspiracy against him, creating an intelligence package that would ensure its architects faced international prosecution. Is Mom really back? Mia asked as they prepared to return to their villa, the immediate threat neutralized. Yes, Gavin confirmed. She claims she wants to apologize to you. Do you believe her? I believe she wants to see you. People rarely change fundamentally, but sometimes they gain perspective. Can I meet her? Mia asked, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. Despite his personal feelings about Lauren, Gavin recognized his daughter's right to form her own judgment, if that's what you want with appropriate security precautions. The meeting was arranged at a neutral location, a private dining room in a discreet restaurant in Monaco, surrounded by Gavin's security team. Lauren arrived alone, visibly nervous and significantly changed from the polished socialite who had orchestrated the Father's Day betrayal. Gavin observed remotely as mother and daughter met for the first time in over 4 years. Their conversation began awkwardly, but gradually found rhythm as Lauren explained her actions without excusing them and apologized without expectation of forgiveness. I don't expect to be part of your life again, she told Mia. I just needed you to know that what happened wasn't your fault, and that, despite my terrible choices, I never stopped loving you. After 2 hours, Mia emerged emotionally drained, but with a new clarity. She's different, she told Gavin. Broken in some ways, but more real. What do you want to happen now? Gavin asked, prioritizing his daughter's needs above his own feelings. I'd like to see her occasionally, Mia decided. Not as my mother exactly, but as someone from my past who's trying to be better. Gavin nodded, accepting her decision without imposing his own judgment. That can be arranged with continuing security protocols. Later that evening, Gavin met privately with Lauren at the same restaurant, their first direct conversation in years without Mia present. Thank you, Lauren said simply, for letting me see her, for raising her so well, despite everything I did. I didn't do it for you, Gavin replied evenly. I know. Lauren looked down at her hands, the polished manicures of her former life replaced by the utilitarian simplicity of someone who had learned harsh lessons about survival. For what it's worth, I understand now what I threw away. Not just the wealth or comfort, but the family we had. Understanding doesn't change the past, Gavin observed. No, she agreed quietly. Some things can't be undone. But I needed to warn you about the people looking for you. Whatever you might think of me, why risk yourself for us after everything? For Mia, Lauren answered without hesitation. And because after 3 years inside, watching Colin destroy himself with bitterness and schemes, I finally understood what you knew all along. Betrayal destroys the betrayer as surely as the betrayed. Gavin didn't offer forgiveness or reconciliation. Those possibilities had died years ago in a lawyer's office on Father's Day. Instead, he provided something more practical: security arrangements that would protect Lauren from the remaining elements of Archer's network while maintaining controlled contact with Mia. This isn't redemption, he made clear. It's pragmatism. Mia wants this connection, so we'll facilitate it within secure parameters. I understand, Lauren said. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm just grateful for any role in her life, however limited. As they concluded, Lauren asked one final question. Was it worth it creating something revolutionary, knowing it would cost you your identity and a normal life? It wasn't a choice, Gavin answered. Prometheus needed to exist, and I was equipped to create it. The cost was high. The alternative was surrender. 1 month later, Gavin stood on the terrace of their Mediterranean villa, watching Mia skillfully navigate her sailboat across the bay. The threat from Archer's network had been permanently neutralized. Their security was reconfigured to allow measured freedom while maintaining protection. Harold joined him, having flown in for their quarterly strategy session on Prometheus evolution. The Foundation is proposing a new implementation focusing on climate finance tracking, Harold reported. The protocol's ability to verify carbon offset transactions could revolutionize environmental markets. Implement it, Gavin said. That's exactly the kind of application I envisioned. And the personal side? Harold asked carefully. How's Mia handling reconnecting with Lauren? Better than expected, Gavin acknowledged. She's mature enough to understand complex motivations and set her own boundaries. And you? Any second thoughts about allowing Lauren back into your orbit? Gavin shook his head decisively. She's in MIA's orbit, not mine. He'll never trust her again. Never forgive the betrayal. But Mia deserves the chance to make her own judgments. As the Mediterranean sun set, Gavin reflected on the path that had brought him here. The blindfold that had once symbolized his deception had ultimately revealed a harsh truth. Loyalty couldn't be assumed, only proven through adversity. The Gavin Mercer ambushed on Father's Day years earlier no longer existed. In his place stood someone stronger, more resolute, and ultimately more effective, a man who had created a technology that changed the world while ensuring those who had betrayed him faced the inescapable consequences of their actions. There was a certain symmetry to the outcome. The blindfold meant to lead him to destruction had forced him to see with perfect clarity. The divorce papers designed to strip him of everything had liberated him to build something revolutionary. And the betrayal that should have broken him had instead forged him into something his enemies fatally underestimated. A man who would never again be blindsided by deception, never again offer trust without absolute verification, and never under any circumstances forgive those who had betrayed him. It wasn't a happy ending in the conventional sense, but it was just as cold, complete, and inescapable, just like Prometheus itself. That's the end of the story. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.